Hey animal enthusiasts and pet hobbyists, Mr. Well here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to set up a custom background for a tropical terrarium. Let's get into it. So the materials for this project include lots of wood and rock decorations, soil, expanding foam by Great Stuff, brown 100% silicone, a caulk gun, some sponges, an Xacto knife, and an enclosure. This is my old Terra front opening terrarium, which is 12 by 12 by 18 inches. Since this will be a Palludarium for a tree frog, I am including a small region of water. The sponges will be used to create a false bottom for the terrestrial region, so I first start off by measuring the area that they take up. I then place a few rocks and wood decor to get an idea of what I'm looking for. Once I've decided on the setup, I use a Sharpie to mark the height of the false bottom. Once marked, I remove the lid and place the enclosure on its back. With a paper towel, I clean the surface where I will be applying the expanding foam with rubbing alcohol. This allows the foam to adhere to the glass easier. Once it's been cleaned, you can then apply the expanding foam. It's okay if it gets past the drainage line since it's only for reference, and once cured, it can be carved off very easily. I like to cover the entire area by going back and forth in side-to-side motions. Typically, the thicker the layers, the longer it will take to fully cure. While the surface of the foam is still sticky, I place the decorations on top. Since the enclosure is on its back, gravity will allow the weight of the decor to better adhere to the foam since it's pressing on it. For the pots, I place them at an angle so that the plants will have better access to light and have enough space to branch out. I do this by holding the pot while placing the expanding foam underneath. One problem I had with these pots is how brittle and crushable they are, which became a problem later that I'll talk about. So after 24 hours, the foam should have properly cured and expanded. It's okay if some of the decorations didn't fully adhere to the foam, since we will be applying silicone, which can also act as a glue. Here is the problem I came across earlier regarding how brittle the pots are. Because they were so weak, the expanding foam essentially crushed into the pot. For my purpose, it is fine since I can just carve a bit around it, but also I will be using a small plant. To avoid this issue, I recommend either using a sturdy pot or placing something strong and solid inside the pot to avoid it getting crushed. For the carving process, I just use a regular old Xacto knife to remove any excess foam that expanded into unwanted areas. This includes the top of the enclosure and the drainage layer. I also try to carve out areas of the foam to make it look more naturalistic and rock-like. Next, I use a caulk gun to start applying the silicone. I first apply it all around the expanding foam and then use a paintbrush to spread it out. You can use your gloves or a smaller paintbrush to get the harder to reach crevices. Once I added enough layers, it was then time to apply the soil. I do this by sprinkling and spreading out handfuls over the silicone, making sure that every area is fully covered. It is better to add multiple layers of soil and then dab it down a bit so that it can better adhere to the silicone. Allow this to cure for at least 24 hours. Once cured, you can flip the enclosure back to its vertical position and remove any excess soil. Once I removed most of the excess, I then attach some dried live moss to the background so that it will hopefully grow and spread out. I try to keep most of the excess soil just to not be as wasteful and I can reuse it. After vacuuming out the bottom, I then place the sponges to create the drainage layer so that it looks like this. On top of the sponges, I place a small sheet of weed barrier tarp to prevent soil from going through the drainage layer. I held this down with the rock decorations. I also placed the wood branch and then a Venus hair fern to the top. Because I liked how this was turning out, I then used aquarium silicone to glue the rocks together and attach them to the tarp. To hide any visible silicone, I sprinkle over it with some white sand. I then decided to fill the bottom with white sand as well. I also mixed in a few pebbles and some gravel. This is what it ended up looking like, which I really like how it turned out. I then added some root systems to the rocks to hide some of the tarp, and then began adding the substrate to the terrestrial region. The ornaments and plants were added next, which I haven't properly identified the species yet. I then began to water the plants. This also helped me test out the drainage layer to make sure it worked properly. Because the amphibians I will be adding are found in areas with lots of leaf litter, I also added some leaves to the terrestrial region and the water. These will also provide a food source for springtails and other inverts, since this will be a bioactive enclosure. Once the enclosure was safe enough for animals, I then placed this juvenile tree frog. This is a Baja California tree frog, which is native to my local area. I can provide facts and information regarding this species in a later video. One of the pots was still missing a plant, so I decided to add this small fern and peperomia plant. Lastly, I added some duckweed to the aquatic region just to add some more greenery. And this is what the final project ended up looking like. So yeah guys, that is how you can set up a custom background for a tropical terrarium or palludarium. If you have any questions or want to see more, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!